Okay guys, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about my plan for learning Italian over the next 3 to 6 months. So I've done a lot of thinking about what I want to get out of the next 3 to 6 months with regards to language learning. And I've decided I really don't want to muck about. I think you do need to be patient with language learning, but I think a lot of the time in the past I've been too patient and not sort of followed the path of where I could get the most out of it, if that makes sense. I actually think that I could have got a lot more done in a much quicker space of time if I had been more willing to see results more quickly. Now obviously you can take that too far, but I certainly think that's worth remembering. And so I expect to see quite quick growth in my ability over the next 3 months. So what am I planning to do? Well, number one thing is I want to improve my listening. I'm at a good level with speaking Italian, but I want to improve my ability to listen to it and understand it really well, and that's my aim, to just really understand Italian when it's spoken. Now this is going to be a difficult thing to measure, and I'm still not entirely sure how I'm going to measure what I consider a success in in 3 months' time. But I think, because can I expect to understand every single word? No, I can't. That's just unrealistic. Even if you study a language for many years, you're always gonna come across words you don't understand. I mean, that's even true of your own language, right? And sometimes you just don't understand what someone's saying. They're speaking too fast. They're using slang you don't recognise. It's like how do you remeasure that? It's impossible. However, that is kind of my aim, is to be able to understand spoken language very well. And if this sounds ambitious, I'm just going to try and explain why I think I'm going to be so effective with it. So the big thing with the spoken language is just immersion. I'm going to start off by telling a story about my great-grandfather. It was actually he was in the Second World War. He fought in Italy, and when the fascists in Italy fell, he ran a hotel. He helped out in a hotel housing troops. So he was living in Italy after the occupation from the Allies, and he really wanted to learn Italian, so he bought a bunch of books. While he was staying in this hotel, sort of sorting out admin for the soldiers and stuff, and he bought a bunch of grammar books, and every night after he'd finished his work with the soldiers, he would learn a bit of Italian, and he got absolutely nowhere with it. However, all the troops who were based in Italy would just go out into the town and meet Italian women, basically. They'd get Italian girlfriends, and they'd be fluent, very quickly. And I think that just illustrates how powerful immersion in the language is. Now, obviously, I don't live in Italy. I can't just go out and get a Italian girlfriend, much though I would like to, obviously. But my plan is to basically get the same kind of immersion that you would get in that experience if you're surrounded by Italian speakers. Because the thing that I've really realised is, in that situation where let's say you're a troop in the Second World War, and you're living in Italy, you're not actually trying to learn the language particularly hard. But you're still in a kind of flow state with it. So my basic aim is to consume content where I'm in a kind of flow state, where I'm not really trying hard to understand the language, but I'm really absorbing a lot of it. So in the past, I've watched a lot of Netflix series in Italian, and at the time I just watched them with Italian subtitles. Because I thought that would be best, because it would be where my brain is working hardest. What I'm going to do this time is to listen to it in English, and I know this sounds really dumb, but I'm gonna I'll do my best to explain why I think this is going to be so effective. When I had the subtitles in Italian, I was sort of outside of that flow state where my brain is most maximised for understanding the language. It's kind of like in a work mode. Meanwhile, if the English subtitles are on there, I'm actually going to be kind of not really... A different part of my brain's turned on, which I think is really good for learning languages. And the reason I'm so confident about this is that I've watched a lot of Bored and Bankrupt videos where he's travelling around Russia, speaking Russian to people. And obviously the subtitles are in English. But I've learned, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I've learned an awful lot of Russian just from watching those videos with English subtitles. And Russian's a language I've spent no time learning. I just kind of picked it up from watching these videos. I mean, I guess I listen to a lot of Russian music, so that's probably helped. But it's not been active, sort of, earphones on, Russian subtitles on, hard study mode. It's just been in a very flow state. And it's just been amazing how much better I've learnt it. So I'm fairly confident that the same thing's going to happen with Italian. Provided I find content to view that gets me into that flow state. I'm going to find a lot of old Italian films and watch them. And I think that's going to have a huge... that's going to be hugely successful. So, it's a bit of an experiment, but I'm going to see how it goes. And yeah, this is my plan for the next 3 months, really. Just find content that I can watch or listen to when I'm at the gym, or when I'm walking, or doing whatever, that genuinely engages me. That's the most important thing. And sort of not consume the content for its own sake, and it's kind of almost a coincidence that it happens to be in Italian. Because I just know that's the best way it's going to go in. Like I was listening to these podcasts, and I've been reading this. This is like a classic Italian novel, Il Barone Rampante, and I've been reading it, and I just know that it's not going in. It's not going in because I'm just not interested. I know it's a fantastic book, like it's one of the great books of Italian literature, but I'm just not. It's not going in because I'm not engaged with it. And similarly, I was listening to a lot of content at the gym about AI in like an Italian newscast about AI and about the Greek economy, just really random bits of stuff that's being reported about it in Italian news stations. And it's really interesting, but like the same content exists in English. And I don't like, so my brain's not sort of engaged in the same way as if I was listening to something that's genuinely like really kind of grasps my attention, and just gets me effortlessly into that flow state. So I'm aware some of this sounds very kind of too good to be true, and kind of like too easy almost, but I think for the objectives that I have of just wanting to master the spoken language and understand it, listening, that's really what's gonna do it for me. Is just consuming content that I enjoy. You know, I'm not really aiming to be fantastic at reading or writing, and I want to be good at speaking it, but I'm not expecting massive progress in there. And so if my only aim is just to understand the spoken language, I really think there's no point in me, like, you kind of can't try too hard in a sense for that kind of thing. You know, if I wanted to study Italian poetry or something like that, then I'd be going about it in a very different way. But interesting that stuff is, it's not why I want to learn the language. So this is going to be my plan over the next 3 months. I'm going to see how I am after 3 months, and then I think I'll continue it for another 6 months to really firm my ability. But I'll assess in 3 months and then maybe switch to another language or continue. So we'll see. But this is my plan, and I really recommend do the same thing yourself if you're wanting to specifically get good at a spoken dialect of a language, a spoken form of a language. It's, if you can tap, basically the quote that I kind of made up myself is that if you can tap into the right part of your brain, like, the human mind just can't help but to learn the language. You know, it's just so weird when I started to like recognise little bits of Russian. You know, I mean, from these Bold and Bankrupt videos, like, it just wasn't my attention at all. You know, meanwhile, I'm sort of, with Latin, I was reading books every day, you know, really trying to get into the flow state with Latin. And I mean, I've made massive progress with Latin, but it's nowhere near where I wanted it to be. And I saw nowhere, given how much time and effort I was putting into it, I'm pretty sure I learned more Russian in that time than I did Latin, just because I was consuming it in a way that just really made my brain tick. Meanwhile, reading a book that you're not necessarily fascinated by, you're just reading it because you want to learn the language, it's not good. It's not going to go into your brain in the same way. And I think if I was going back to learning Latin, I would take a similar approach of consuming content that I was really just interested in. That's a video for another time. Anyway guys, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.